Massive groundbreaking news in the MMA community. Dana White just announced basically the entire UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia card in June. And I'm just going to let you guys listen and react along with me. And then we're going to break down these matchups, starting with Khamzat Chimaev versus Robert Whittaker as the main event of UFC Saudi Arabia. Let's listen to Dana White's announcement because there's more other than that. Go ahead, Dana. Take it away.
What's up, guys? Here with another announcement. On Saturday, June 22nd, we'll be going to Saudi Arabia. Our first fight in the kingdom will be a fight night that will air live and free on ABC.
Great this on ABC. We need another ABC card, and this is sounding like a card worthy of an ABC Fight Night card. I'm liking it on ABC, okay? They always put on great cards when that happens. Keep going, Dana.
And the main event will be former middleweight champion Robert Whittaker versus 13-0 undefeated Khamzat Chimaev.
Damn! What a matchup! What a matchup! Main event, Robert Whittaker, Khamzat Chimaev. Great matchup. Amazing fight. Now, do I think Whittaker's going to barely survive a first round and then go on to absolutely destroy a completely gassed out Khamzat Chimaev, who absolutely gassed against a 2 or 5 day notice Kamaru Usman? Yes, I am going to pick Whittaker to win, but what an amazing matchup this is. Khamzat Chimaev, Robert Whittaker. I guess this gives us some clarification on what else is going on at middleweight. We're likely going to see Adesanya versus Duplessis now. We're also probably going to see Strickland versus Cannonier. Strickland's kind of been left out on the sidelines here, even though perceivably he is the biggest name at middleweight right now based on social media interaction. But I guess it doesn't count if you're Strickland and you get that level of interaction. So he's likely going to be left to fight Jared Cannonier in a rematch. Which is fine because Cannonier beat him before in a very close fight. I don't mind him running that fight back. But man, Robert Whittaker, Khamzat Chimaev. Keep talking to us, Dana.
See who will be the #1 contender for the UFC Middleweight Championship.
That's very telling as well. Who will be the #1 contender for the UFC Middleweight Championship? Which means that if Strickland goes out there and beats anyone, he's not next in line according to the UFC. So Adesanya can win his belt, reign for a bit, lose to Jan Blachowicz, win a few more at middleweight with his championship, lose and get an immediate rematch, which is fine, lose again, someone who he didn't even lose to gets the belt, and then he just gets another title shot anyway. Not everyone gets the Adesanya treatment, you know? Adesanya had no title defenses in his second reign, and he immediately gets put back into a title fight. His legacy's fake because of the favoritism. And now Strickland isn't even going to be in a position where he can get a title shot with one win because he's going to have to probably wait out. So Strickland's going to have to actually fight 2 more fights likely to get his title shot back, which is insane. Unless they actually do Duplessis versus Strickland, which I can't see because that would leave Adesanya versus Cannonier too, which no one's trying to see. Keep going, Dana.
The co-main event, the #3 ranked knockout artist Sergei Pavlovich versus the #6 ranked Alexander Volkov.
Huge matchup. 2 Russian Chads at heavyweight in the top 5. Squaring off against each other. Massive matchup. Sergei Pavlovich, Alexander Volkov. You know what? I'm going to talk about each of these matchups as Dana White announces them. So we've got Khamzat Chimaev, Robert Whittaker, and I'll talk about that at the end of this video as well, because that's the focus point of all of this. Volkov versus Pavlovich is an amazing fight. And one thing very important to note about Volkov versus Pavlovich is that, although it might be off-center on my screen, I'm going to show you it right now. Volkov Pavlovich has recently been made, but the original matchup that was supposed to take place was actually Volkov versus Almeida. That was supposed to take place at UFC 302 on the 1st of June. That was actually booked and announced. Big Marcel put it up. This was 2 days ago. They made Alexander Volkov versus Jailton Almeida for UFC 302 International Fight Week. Then, now out of nowhere a few days later, we get Pavlovich versus Alexander Volkov getting announced by Dana White. Why do we get that announced? My only understanding of this possibly is we're getting Aspinall versus Blades. That's a matchup that's going to happen. The storyline is there. We've got Pavlovich versus Volkov, but the fact that Volkov was booked up against Jailton Almeida first, which I didn't agree with, I think we should cut Almeida from the sport, shows us that they had an idea of a different matchup for Pavlovich. And that matchup, in my opinion, was probably Pavlovich versus Cyril Gane in the co-main event of this card. That was their original plan. Because that way, no matter what in Saudi Arabia, if anything happens to the main event, Pavlovich versus Gane is still a very acceptable main event. So they probably wanted to do Pavlovich versus Gane. And the reason why they've now shipped Volkov from his Almeida matchup to this Pavlovich matchup, we'll get to the others in a second, to this Pavlovich matchup in a matter of days, it goes to show they were relying on Gane to accept a fight with Pavlovich, and he probably said no again. So that's him turning down Blades twice, Aspinall twice, and Pavlovich now twice. 6 turndowns of fights from Cyril Gane against top 4 ranked heavyweights. I might make a whole video about it in a second. Tomorrow maybe. But great matchup, Pavlovich, Volkov. I'm not going to lie, I think Volkov's got a solid shot of winning this one, style-wise. I just don't think it lends itself to get jab KOs on a guy way taller than you, which Volkov is going to be over Pavlovich. I'm going to still go with Pavlovich because I think Volkov is hittable enough. And I think he's older now, and Pavlovich is going to be hungry after his loss. But I'm telling you guys, Volkov has a shot here to survive and be awkward and tall enough to take Pavlovich into a later round where those teeps to the body can start coming in handy. Maybe he can start chopping the legs of Pavlovich. And who knows? All it takes is for Pavlovich to merely fumble a finish in the first round, and this fight could look extremely different because Volkov is dangerous in those deep waters. Amazing fight, though. Tell us more, Dana White. We'll get back to Whittaker Chimaev in a second.
Also, Kelvin Gastelum will be taking on Daniel Rodriguez. We've got...
Amazing fight. Kelvin Gastelum, Daniel Rodriguez. I put these in the wrong order. There we go. Kelvin Gastelum, Daniel Rodriguez. An amazing matchup. An amazing matchup. I'm going to move this all the way over here now. Amazing. Gastelum versus Rodriguez is an amazing matchup. Great fight. 2 scrappers. A scrappy fight we're going to get out of the 2 of them. And this is a great addition to that card. At welterweight 170, you've got Gastelum basically coming off a fight which, in my opinion, was kind of an eye-opener that he's never going to win a belt ever in his career. Because Gastelum's always had the on a mission for gold. I think it was his Twitter name, and might still be his Twitter name now. On a mission for gold. Everything's about getting that belt. And after that fight with Sean Brady, it was kind of like a moment where Brady basically said to him, yeah, you ain't elite level, little bro. You're a fat Mexican guy, you know what I mean? That somehow head kick wobbled Adesanya because middleweights are that garbage compared to welterweight. D-Rod versus Gastelum. Sick fight. Don't know who's going to win, actually, because I thought Gastelum looked very slow against Brady, and I was worried that that frequency shift would look bad for him going from middleweight to featherweight. I said the same thing about Dan Hooker going down to featherweight. I actually picked Arnold Allen to KO him in the first round, in the first exchange, because he'd be too fast. Sometimes moving down in weight don't work like that because you're used to being fast against these slow middleweights, and then the welterweights have good hand speed and it catches you off guard, and all of a sudden all of the habits you've built up for a certain speed of fighting is completely changed. We saw that with Dillashaw and Cejudo as well. And Garbrandt and Kai Kara France. We can go over and over again about these moments. I'm going to go with D-Rod maybe over Kelvin Gastelum. I reckon he can eke out a war of a decision by just having a bit better and crisper volume heavy boxing. But I don't want to count out Kelvin Gastelum. He's very good himself. He could easily win this. I just think after that last fight, it was sort of a showing that you don't belong at the top anymore. Even though D-Rod's not going to take him down. So, interesting fight. Winnable for Gastelum. Sick fight. What else you got for us, Dana?
Johnny Walker versus Volkan Oezdemir. Undefeated.
Damn! We'll get to this other one in a second. Johnny Walker, Volkan Oezdemir. An amazing fight. June, UFC, Saudi Arabia, 205 pounds. An amazing matchup. Johnny Walker, Volkan Oezdemir. I've been wondering what they were going to do with Volkan Oezdemir for a long time. I was thinking maybe they could do a him versus he lost to Krylov, a him versus Khalil Roundtree. By the way, this now confirms Khalil Roundtree, Nikita Krylov as far as I'm concerned. Unless Krylov's died at war, which isn't far-fetched of an idea. But him versus Khalil Roundtree would be a sick matchup. But this, Walker versus Oezdemir. Yeah, I'm going to have to stop trusting in Walker because he's not good in any way. He's just athletic and he can't fight and he can't box and he's got a reach advantage over all these guys, and I've never seen him land a jab in his entire career. No idea how that can potentially work when you're training someone to be an MMA fighter, for them not to be able to land a jab on someone that they have an 8-inch reach advantage over. So I'm probably going to trust in the fact that Oezdemir might clip him and stay patient in this fight and be able to win because of it, because he's not some soy-bodied, no muscle definition Anthony Smith. But Walker could get it done. A winnable fight for Walker, a winnable fight for Oezdemir, another great addition to that card in Saudi Arabia. We move on. What else you got for us, Dana?
12-0 Shara Bullet versus Ihor Potieria, who has 15 of his 20 wins coming by first round finish.
Nice! I don't like the opponent, but Ihor Potieria is just the guy that's going to say yes. At this point, Potieria is just the guy that's going to say yes. I think that's what we have to sort of come to terms with. No one else, you know, and to be fair, Shara Magomedov doesn't deserve a ranked opponent. Let's call it what it was. They were trying to do him versus Vettori. He didn't deserve it. You know, he got taken down by Bruno Silva a bunch. Kind of got a little bit momentum. I know everyone's just going to sort of hype him up because of the way he looks. But in my opinion, that Bruno Silva fight, even though I thought he won it, it wasn't a good look for a Dagestani guy to be taken down over and over again by Bruno Silva and not have much ability to get back up. He did in some moments, but it was too often seeing him immediately get double-legged back down to the canvas again. So this is a great fight. They've announced it here. A mirror matchup, but one of them's more inbred because he's less, you know, Central and Eastern Europe, Western European, more off to the Caucasus, the original spawn point of Europeans, if you will. And he never left from that position, and you can see that by his eye. Either way, feels like the three amigos right now on the screen. I should have kept my hair the way I originally had it when the beanie came off, and it would be the three amigos on stream right now. Either way, I'm going to go with Shara Magomedov. I don't rate Ihor Potieria, so I don't like the matchup. I think this is a freebie for Shara Magomedov. Did I think that Potieria looked good in his last fight? You know what? He didn't look that bad. And he came in on short notice, made middleweight on short notice. He's usually a light heavyweight, not a big light heavyweight, but he trimmed down, made middleweight. And he said if he had a full training camp, he'd look way better. So I'm interested to see how this one goes. I just don't think you're going to go too far striking with a guy like Shara Magomedov. I do think a grappler would expose him. I'd love to see Shara Magomedov built up as a first big test for Bo Nickel someday. So if Bo Nickel beats Brundage and then fights again in July on a pay-per-view and beats another unranked guy, and Shara Magomedov wins this one, you could do these two against each other, Shara Magomedov and Bo Nickel, and have the winner get a ranked position or get a ranked opponent. So that's an amazing fight that they've added to the card. What else, Dana?
This card is going to be bad.
Nothing.
From top to bottom, it's going to be historic. It's our first ever show from the Kingdom. Tickets go on sale soon, so make your plans for UFC Saudi Arabia, June 22nd, live and free on ABC.
Base, that's a great announcement. Free on ABC. This is amazing. One thing I do want to say about this card and about this whole topic in general, we'll move over to this screen and we'll talk about Khamzat Chimaev, Robert Whittaker, is that this kind of goes to show, in my opinion, that Saudi put their fucking foot down on the UFC. They really did. The UFC were like, we got Mikhaev versus Perez for you. That was the original idea that they were going to go with. It might have even been something worse. It might have been like Mikhaev Schnell. I can't remember, but Mikhaev was supposed to be the main event. Maybe a Tim Elliott? Was it the Tim Elliott fight? Something like that. Mikhaev was originally supposed to be the main event of this card. So I bet you Saudi Arabia was like, yeah, we're getting Joshua Ngannou and Fury Usyk and this and that and Canelo this and not Canelo, but Bivol versus this guy, Bertabiev, and we're getting all these matchups. You ain't giving us fucking Mikhaev. So I think that's an L for the UFC. This is the UFC like, please Saudi, please let us have some of your oil money, is basically what they're doing. You know what I mean? Because they tried to put forward a shitty fight night card before, and the whole card got moved backwards. And that goes to show, by how much they've overstacked this card now, that Saudi weren't fucking having that dog shit of a card. After all this time, the first time they're going to Saudi Arabia, they ain't having that shit headlined by boring-ass Mohammed Mikhaev. Like, Whittaker, Chimaev, sick matchup, amazing main event. We can talk about it for a little bit at the end here. Does Chimaev finish Whittaker in 1 or 2 rounds? Now, I know what you're going to say. Du Plessis did. So it's now not even a thing of like, well, nobody finishes Whittaker in the early rounds, because we've seen it happen now. We've seen it against Adesanya in their first fight. We've seen it against Du Plessis in their fight with each other. I think he actually finished him in the second round, but still, he finished him in the early 2 rounds. Same with Adesanya finishing him in the second round as well. And if there was more time at the end of the first, Adesanya probably would have finished Whittaker there too. And if there was more time at the end of the first against Costa, Whittaker was in trouble there as well. So that's all on the feet though. But Du Plessis did head and arm throw him like a female MMA fighter, which is crazy to say back. Du Plessis did head and arm throw Whittaker as if he was a women's MMA fighter, which is incredibly bad for Whittaker. Great for Du Plessis, a great look for him, but not a good look for Whittaker, because he was a guy who for a long time it was like, yeah, you can knock out Whittaker, he's a bit chinny, but you ain't taking him down or spending any time on top of him, because we thought Romero was good at grappling for some reason, even though he's only good at defensive grappling, which is every Olympian ever that transitions to MMA, because they don't learn how to control people on the ground in their Olympic style of wrestling. It's a bit different. I've heard Chael speak about this at long last. I've heard him speak about this. Whittaker can be controlled. He probably will be controlled. But I take it back to this. Kamaru Usman is washed. Never thought he's been that good. I think physicality has won Usman a lot of his fights. And I said, dude, the Edwards fight, the physicality is not going to be there as much. Edwards beats him. Picked Edwards twice, he beat him twice. I think Usman is washed. I don't think that's a good version of Usman that fought Chimaev. I think that's a bad, at the end of his career, version of Usman, who just sort of had nothing to lose. He was like, dude, they're giving me this. They said I'll get a title shot if I win. It's on a week's notice against Chimaev, upper weight class. Fuck it. That's not a real committed athlete that really cares about his career in that moment. That's a washed up Usman that's like, I ain't trying to build back up against Shavkat and then this guy and then that guy at welterweight. Let me take this fast track opportunity against Chimaev. Chimaev basically lost that fight. Round 1 is a very lucky 10-8 round for Chimaev. I know he dominated the round, but in terms of damage done, very lucky to get a 10-8 round. We've seen a lot more damage been done and a lot more domination been done in a round, and a 10-8 not been given out. We've seen someone dropped twice in a round, and a 10-8's not been given out. Chimaev controlled Usman for 1. 10-8, whatever. The next 2 rounds, I'm telling you, Usman won those rounds. On short notice, upper weight class, washed in his own career. I think he is washed. I know people are like, the people that said Usman is washed. Performances don't change things. Like, well, just the result of a performance doesn't change anything. The look of the fighter within that performance is what I judge, not the result of the performance. Because anyone can catch someone and all of a sudden they're the greatest of all time. The look within the performance. Usman against Chimaev looked hobbly on his legs. I swear he can't walk anymore at all. And Chimaev weren't even attacking his legs in that fight. I think if Whittaker survives round 1, this is a 5-rounder in Saudi Arabia. I'm telling you, live odds is where you're going to make crazy money here. I'm going to pick Whittaker to win based on like round 4, 3, TKO. If Whittaker survives round 1 and a bit of round 2, Chimaev will absolutely fold in front of him, and Whittaker will make him look like a fool on the feet, and Chimaev will gas. So I'm going to go Whittaker. I think the way to make money on this is to live bet. If you see Chimaev dominating Whittaker and they've got him as a favorite after the second round, live bet Whittaker. We know Chimaev can't go 5. He can barely go 3. I'm going to have to side with Whittaker, man. I think he's got the survivability to do it. But we'll see how Chimaev looks in his next fight at 185. Maybe he improves. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I guess this leaves us. Who's Paulo Costa fighting? Maybe Strickland? Who's Cannonier fighting? No. There's a lot of unknown right now at middleweight, but one thing we do know is likely Du Plessis Adesanya. Fuck Cyril Gane for ducking another heavyweight, as far as I'm concerned. I might make a whole video on it, because he's done it like 6 times now. See you later. Goodbye.